Welcome back, co-creators. It's your resident internet psychic medium and spiritual advisor, mysticrainn, and today we are going to be doing a little spiritual chat. We're just going to be doing a little spiritual chat, talking about earth angels while I play with my acrylics over here. So, like, why acrylics? It's just like whatever. It's so weird because like I just kind of want to jump in, but I feel like some of you are going to be like, why are you doing acrylics? So I do my nails like often, and sometimes when I do these spiritual chat videos, I like to like kill two birds with one stone, and like a lot of that times it's like prepping for like my next full set, whatever. Anyway, I have like these old dip powders that are like from 2017, and for those that don't know, dip powders, if you're into nails, I'm gonna have to put a timestamp in here because some of you did not come here for this, but it's over here somewhere. But like for some of you guys that like are interested in nails, dip powder is like a form of acrylic. It's like a dip acrylic. It's just a little bit more fine. You can use it with like monomer, and monomer, by the way, is like the liquid that people use for acrylics. In case you don't know. But the consistency is always a little bit off. But anyway, because I've had these for so long, the pigment in the powder separates when I try to use them. So I figured that I would take the acrylics that I do have, and I have like a lot of different kind of glitters and different colors, and see if I can come up with a new acrylic powder before I just throw them out, because I don't want to just kind of like waste all of my money. So, you know. Okay, so like, I want to talk about angels, you guys. I want to talk about like specifically, I want to talk about earth angels. And the reason for this is because, as always, you guys know, I have a tendency to have a lot of Kylie Jenner moments these days. I think it's because the collective is like waking up. And because I have all these Kylie Jenner moments, how many beads do I want? I started realizing a lot about myself and a lot about like other people, a lot about the human dynamic. I started understanding a lot about like love. But particularly my biggest lesson has been the lesson of like unconditional love and what unconditional love actually means. And I have been, I don't know, like it's kind of kicked in really heavy in the last like month or two, where I've been having like experiences with people or dreams, or people would come to me and they would tell me about something that's kind of going on in their life and something that's kind of happening to them. And I would be like, oh my God, like, okay, like that makes sense. And all of these things will start to link up as to why certain things have happened in my life, right? The biggest thing though that I've learned is love, and like what it means to love, and why I love. And it was like a lot of journeys, and I'm like, we're gonna get to the angel part because it's like all connected.
So we don't talk about angels at all in this video. I completely veered left, and this video ended up being about love. A lot of the stuff that came out is channeled, and I just kind of went with it. So I decided to do a video on earth angels at a later date. You'll still get that, but for all of yous that want to talk about love, this is the video for you.
But it was a lot of journeys for me. It was a lot of relationships, if I'm going to be honest. And I had a period where I was just like falling in love, man, like with everyone, like really heavily. And like these people were like falling for me. And it was just like really kind of like, it felt so like divinely orchestrated. Because I had like this period where like I would meet someone and then we would fall for each other, and then it would end in a month, and then in a week I would meet somebody else and then we would fall for each other. And I remember in that time being like, what? Like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, how am I having like all of these experiences with people like back to back to back to back to back? Like, it doesn't really make all that much sense to me. And I was trying to kind of place it and piece it together, but I was never really able to piece it together. And then I had a period where it was like a lull in the dating life. And then I was offended. I was like, wow, spirit, like, wow, like that's what you do? Like, I was over here just following the Lord's work, okay, like learning, living my best life, and then you've given me a dry spell, like what is this? And then anyway, what I started to notice is that like my people circle, people around me started ending up in a lot of relationships. And then they would fall for this person and then it would end really quickly. And it was more than just like being in a talking phase. There was like a deeper energetic level thing that was happening. And I was like, what is this? Like, what am I seeing? And I was just kind of like sitting with myself. And then like one day I realized, I was like, holy crap, like I think I got it. Like I think I understand. And and by understand, like understand what it means to like love someone. And it's really interesting because prior to present day me, I was like, honestly, if we're just gonna be like real, super miserable. Like super miserable. Super pessimistic, super miserable. Before like my whole spiritual journey kicked in, I was like grieving and I was angry and I like walked around with like this perpetual dark cloud and I never thought things would get better and I always thought that like people were out to get me or you know that that the universe didn't want me to be happy, that God was punishing me. When I tell you I was this person, I was this person. Which is why when I like talk to so many of you all, I can understand and I can like relate because like I've been there. Like I haven't always been in this place where like I like look like I have it figured out. One, I don't have anything figured out. But two, it took a while to reach a place of like peace and like lightness. And but within that, I also was completely like cut off from the idea of love. I thought that no one would ever love me and that I was incapable of loving someone else. I genuinely thought that I was incapable of loving someone else. And that the idea of experiencing that kind of love or being in a romantic relationship where I was in love was unfathomable. And I know where this comes from. Like a lot of it comes from because a lot of people in my family passed away. The people that I viewed to be my, like, my, what would you call, the love of my lives, like, they died. And I was in a place where I thought that I could never love again because how do I love again after losing people that I thought I loved the most? And I had a long phase where I was just miserable and I just didn't think it was possible for me. And then fast forward many years, like, oh my God, 7, 8 years or so, I started to meet people. And then one time there was this one particular person I fell in love and it was instantaneous and it was quick and I knew it and I knew it immediately and I knew that it had nothing to do with infatuation because this person drove me crazy, right? It had nothing to do with like it, you know, it like what you would see in movies. I just had this spiritual profound level of awareness that I loved somebody, that I was in love with somebody. And what made it worse was that it was unrequited. Oh my God, it was horrendous. It wasn't mutual, you guys. It was not mutual. Oh my God. I can say it now and I can like laugh, but at the time I was devastated. Like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, it's not mutual, right? But the thing I learned in that moment, I learned a lot of things. That was my first lesson of understanding the idea and the concept of unconditional love. Because when it wasn't reciprocated, I still loved. It didn't go away. Even though I wanted it to be reciprocated, it was never reciprocated. But the feelings never left. And I had like this small understanding that when you love unconditionally, that it's a possibility that it's not returned, right? And that was like the tiny understanding of like what that meant, right? Anyway, fast forward, right? You know, I thought that I had fell out of love. I had still cared about this person, but like didn't want to be with the person. And so I thought that I had fell out of love. And like this is where the whole lesson of like confusing things and misunderstanding love for something else, other feelings for love and different things like that. And then, then I like went into like that period of like dating, falling, dating, falling, dating, falling. And then some of them actually, that was the only one that like wasn't like reciprocated, but the other ones were, right? And what I realized after like kind of all the experiences was all of those people, regardless of how it ended, still held a really special place in my heart. Like still genuinely held a very special place in my heart. And I still cared about them. Even and in that time, like in those moments, I would go, because we've all been this. Don't call me anymore, don't text me anymore, I don't want to hear from you again. We've all gone through that, right? Like, oh my God, I don't ever want to talk to him again. I don't ever want to speak to him again. Like we've all experienced this. Like I ain't special. Like, you know what I mean? And but I started to have an understanding that like I can go X amount of years never having contact with this person, but if I ever found out that something was wrong and that this person really needed me, that I would be there. And I then like stopped and had to like gather like self and figure out, well, why is that? Because at the time you interpreted everything that happened to be negative, but you would still be there. And then that was questions of like, well, what if they're not there for you? That was a thing. And then eventually I got to a place where I was like, it doesn't matter. And anyway, long story short, because I can ramble about this, is I really understood that the idea of unconditional love is simply loving without expectation. It's loving without the expectation that you're loved in return. It's loving freely and independently and effortlessly with no consideration for what it brings you, with no expectation of what the other person does, with no need to tell them. Because when we feel the need to tell them, it's because we really have an expectation on what that response is. It's just the ability to love freely. And what I've learned, and like part of this came from like channeling and talking to guys and whatever, was the fact that I at one point in time in my life rejected the idea of love didn't make a whole lot of sense because I myself was love. I myself cannot reject the idea of love or reject the idea that I could ever be in love or reject the idea that someone could ever love me or any of the above, because I am love. I am spirit. That is at my truest form. I am love. So I cannot sit here and say I can't love you. I love you all. And it was a really beautiful, profound moment. I love all of you. Yes, you watching this. I genuinely love you all because that is my truest nature, to love. It is natural for me to love. It is unnatural for me to force myself not to love someone. This is really interesting because a lot of us go through this, right? Oh, they're not good for you or whatever, even though you feel something. It's unnatural to fight that because what you are at the core is love. At its truest core, it's love. And so, ooh, pretty. I took that sort of understanding and like kind of like allowed myself to just kind of flow into like love and just kind of like be at peace and at one with it. And what I've started to notice at my life at that point was then I started to attract a lot of people to me, not necessarily always romantic, but friendships and just people in general, strangers, who would just kind of be like, oh my God, like, you're so cool, or you're so this, or you're so kind, or you're so charismatic is a big one. I get sunny. I get, you're really sunny. I get that often. And men particularly have a tendency to tell me that I'm glowy. So women use the phrase sunny, and men say I'm glowy. But I noticed that kind of kicked in pretty heavily when I kind of embraced this notion of like, that is my being and that's what I am. But with that lesson, I also had to learn how to balance, because when you realize that, then you want to go love everything and everyone, or you think that to love means to always have to be nice, always have to be giving, always have to sacrifice. And then I had to learn boundaries and realize that that's not what it means at all, right? I can love you without expectation, but you still cannot cause me harm. And that harm can be physical harm, mental harm, emotional harm. You still cannot cause me harm. And maybe you're causing me harm. Like maybe, let's say it's a friend and I don't feel they're respecting the relationship. Or I feel like sometimes they can get disrespectful. You're causing me harm. I love you, but you're causing me harm. And I'm going to set a boundary with you to prevent you from continuing to do that. That boundary may require that I sever our relationship, but I'm severing the relationship because you caused me harm, not because I don't love you. And I had to learn that love exists independently from everything else. Sometimes we end up in relationships where maybe it's not working, maybe we're fighting a lot, maybe we're emotionally compromised, maybe we're mentally compromised, but we feel like because we love the person that we need to be there for that person, even though we're not happy in a circumstance. What I've realized is that that's not the case at all. Love exists independently than everything else. If you're causing me harm, my boundary is to sever the relationship, right? Until you evolve. But I hold no expectation that you will evolve, and you may never evolve. And I'm okay with that because I love you, right? And so when I started reaching that, I started to become the woman that breaks up with you in a heartbeat. Like, I will break up with you so fast. I can be so, I can love, oh my gosh, I will break up with you if I love you. I'm one of those that breaks up in the name of love. I'll be because I love you, I'm breaking up with you. I had this one guy where not too long ago, actually, I was you know what? I can't even get it out because it's so outrageous. I was with love, I discharge you. And he was like, what? He was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, with love, I discharge you. And at that moment when I said it, it wasn't even premeditated, you guys. I wasn't even oh yeah, this is how I'll do it. It came out so effortless. It just came out of me. I was I had a moment of clarity where I was yeah, of course I love you. But you're causing harm. And the harm for me was we were arguing, and I have a really demanding, busy job. And so all requirements for everyone that I date is that you cannot add to that. When I finish working, if you don't help me maintain the consistent level of stress I started the day with, or bring it down, if you are adding to that aggravation, that's a no. No, absolutely not. You can't make it worse for me, right? Anyway, so we were having a disagreement, and I had a moment where my blood pressure went a little bit too high. And I was with love, I discharge you. And he was like, what the hell are you talking about? And I was like, you know what? It's for the best. But in that also moment that I had this moment of sometimes when you break up with someone, you don't want to see them with other people, right? You're okay, we can't be together, but I need a moment, right? You don't want to see them with other people. And I had a moment where I realized that I didn't care. And it was because I realized I love you. And so because of that, I want you to be happy. And if it doesn't come out of this situation, then it should come out of another situation, because at a minimum, you deserve that. Because I love you, I want you to experience love, and I want you to understand what that is. And I want someone that makes your heart warm. Because I love you, I want you to smile, and I want you to laugh. Because I love you, I want you to experience. I want you to get everything that it was that you have ever wanted, ever. Because I love you. It may not be able to happen with us, but because I love you, I want it all for you. And I'm okay if it starts today. I'm okay if after this conversation you run into your soulmate, because I love you. I want that for you. And I had a moment of peace. And the funniest thing is, all of a sudden, Every other relationship that I had that didn't work out, all of it aligned, all of it made sense, and I was at peace with all of it. And I also understood that what happens in relationships, oh damn, this is gonna be glittery. What happens in relationships is that we misunderstand love. We think, we confuse, in my opinion, I believe that we confuse chaos for love. When you meet someone and you're in a relationship, you experience infatuation, admiration, adoration, insecurity, jealousy, maybe even a little bit of anger, fear of abandonment. You are experiencing so many emotions. And what is emotion? Emotion at the end of the day is energy in motion. When you have all of that energy together in a pot, it's conflicting. You have all of this unstable energy boiling, and it's chaos. And we confuse this chaos for love. When it's not love, it's chaos. But because it's something that's happening with that person, because that person has the ability to sort of rile it all up, we associate and attach that chaos to that person. And because we don't feel it with someone else, we think that that chaos means that we are in love, which what it really means is that we're in chaos. Because because we think that to love is that love is a noun, that you have to be in love, that love is a place that you go. Love isn't a place that you go. Love is a state of being. Love is what you are. So you simply love. There is no being in love. If you are in love, what you are experiencing is the emotional chaos. You're experiencing the arousing emotions all at once. And arousing can be excitement and it can be panic, but you're experiencing it all at the same time. This is why when people fall in love, a lot of you have experienced a situation where one of you ran. Either you did or your partner did, and you said to yourself, oh, they were afraid to fall in love, or they were afraid to be in love. Well, yeah, they were afraid because it was chaotic. It was a place of chaos that is not their normal emotional, energetic equilibrium. And it became a lot for them. And so what happened is somehow, some way, or became a lot for you, but then somehow, some way, you broke up because it was a state of chaos. Now, here's the thing. I don't particularly think the chaos is bad if you have the ability to recognize it for what it is. It's not being in love. It's admiration, infatuation, admiration, insecurities, jealousies, fear of abandonment, and it's all together in a pot. It doesn't mean that you're not fond of this person, that you don't care deeply for this person, but it's not love. Love is simply a state of being, right? You simply love. You don't cut it on. You don't cut it off. It doesn't fade. You simply love. Admiration fades. Adoration fades, right? Insecurities can fade. Jealousy can fade. Love doesn't fade. Love is a state of being. If you are spirit, right, and your natural state of being is love, how could it fade? And then it was when like all of that clicked, when I realized that all of those people that I loved, for me not to love them anymore, then it means it wasn't love. It was chaos. But if I still cared about them, because my natural being is love, then of course I love them. And so there are people that I went back in my Rolodex and realized that I had dated. And I was like, oh wow, I do love this person. And maybe in the relationship, those words were never exchanged, right? But I had an understanding that it didn't matter. I also had an understanding that I didn't need to tell them. Because when you love unconditionally, you love without the expectation of it being returned. You just love. And that was kind of like this like big lesson that I had where I was like, okay, like that makes sense. And I'm talking about it because I actually feel like a lot of people are going to start having this realization within themselves, and that they are that I think too, and this is more so of like a psychic prediction, I think people are going to start reuniting with exes. I'm not saying that this is going to lead to a marriage or a long-term relationship, but I think so many people are evolving and so many people are waking up. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I have noticed that like the conversation has drastically changed from a year ago. The amount of people now that are talking about addressing trauma, addressing emotional triggers, amount of people that are talking about things that a year ago would have been considered like woo-woo, all of that is starting to become mainstream. Like you can be on TikTok and like all the videos are people talking about addressing emotional issues, addressing themselves, growing, becoming better versions of themselves. And I think what's going to happen is that people are going to start gravitating towards each other because people are going to grow. People are going to realize where they contributed to certain issues and relationships, how they messed things up, how they could have done better. And I think there are going to be exes that are going to start coming back in people's lives, and that people are really going to be in a place where they are reconnecting. Some of those people will rekindle, and I think the rekindling, the relationships will be different because you're going to be dealing with two people that have grown and two people that evolved and two people that can look back on the previous circumstance and understand that what you were dealing with was someone that had unresolved emotional issues, right? But as people become more aware, and they're becoming increasingly more aware, I think that that this people are really going to start understanding that. But so I would actually challenge you guys too to look at your relationships around you. Maybe look at the relationship you're currently in, right? And just kind of get an idea of like what happened. Like, is it love or is it chaos? And I don't necessarily think chaos is always a bad thing. I think chaos is only bad when you don't know you're in a state of chaos. If you know that when you meet somebody and in the beginning you're aroused, right? And aroused could mean sexually, but I'm really just meaning where like that infatuation stage. If you can identify it for what it is, just new emotions, energies in motion, then I think people would make it a lot farther in their connections. But here's another thing that I've learned too. Here's the caveat. Now that I've learned this, the people that I come in contact with, right? And yeah, particularly men, because I have a tendency to attract them a lot these days because I guess, frequency or whatever. They are drawn and they are in always in a state of like awe. Like to them, it's like this a magnificent thing because it's like what, like love, like someone that's not afraid of it. Because I used to be like, oh my God, love. Oh my God, well, I don't want to do that. But it's not something I'm afraid of because I understand that I do it all the time. It's natural. Because I understand that I do fall for people very quickly. And I actually enjoy the falling process, which is probably why I fall so quickly. And I don't actually mind it. Like I'm at peace with the whole idea of it, even if it's not something that's like a long-term thing. It's not something that like bothers me, although it used to. But it's something about that frequency that when people aren't used to being able to identify it, because it is a higher frequency, it scares them. And I think, what I've experienced, and especially in my dating life is because I now understand that there is no expectation, that unconditional love is loving without expectation. I may have obviously expectations on how you treat me, but I don't associate that with love. It's just don't disrespect me, right? But when it comes to the other stuff of like who you are, I love all of you. So of course I love you too. Now you may need to work on some things, but I love everyone. So of course I love you. But then what happens is when you come across people who are in a place in their life who don't believe they should be loved because they have yet to learn to love themselves, they sabotage. They sabotage. Because the idea is like, why would this person love me? Like, I'm not lovable. Like, I have nothing to offer. Why would they love me? They get so, like, what's the word? Not scared, but it's almost like the idea of like, for somebody else to come to terms with what they perceive they are before they've come to terms is, I think, for a lot of people, intimidating. Because I think the idea to them is, well, what did you see that I didn't see? And if you try to tell them, when they're in that place, they're not ready to receive the conversation. To them, you're making it up. So it doesn't end up working out, right? So like that's a caveat to this that I've noticed. But another part of that too is that it doesn't mean that you don't attract these people, because everyone wants that. Everyone looks for love. I don't care how many people are on Tinder and people try to say, oh, well, you can't find love on Tinder, it's just a hookup app. When I tell you, I don't believe all of that. Yes, I know that there are people on places like Tinder to hook up, but I would also bet money on the fact that a lot of people are low-key hopeful that they find someone that they can love. Or why would they be there? If we are all spirit and love is our true form, why wouldn't we want it? It's natural that you want that. It's natural to feel like you want to be partnered. It's natural to be frustrated when you feel like you maybe have been single for too long, yeah? Like, yeah, being single can be fun, and it is, especially when you got your own thing going on. But there's a thing that lingers in the back of everyone's mind that, like, would say to themselves, oh yeah, but that experience would be nice. And everybody secretly is looking for the same experience, right? But because everyone has misunderstood love for chaos, they don't know where to find the experience. And the problem is, when you end up in calming relationships that are not chaotic, people don't know how to handle that either. Has any of that happened to you? I know that happens to me because I'm actually pretty low key. And like, I do a lot of work on my energy, and the feedback is the same across the board, that when people are around me, they just feel way more relaxed, right? And when I've been in situations with people who were used to chaos in their relationships, and they like the relax, but because they're not used to it, they don't know how to function in it. Have any of you had a situation where like you were in something and it just didn't work out because it was too calm? That's a thing. That's totally a thing. People don't talk about it though. But it's a thing. And it's a shared thing, and it is a collective experience. Right? Like, it's not just like everyone actually experiences that. It's just that no one actually talks about it the way it probably should be spoken about. And so I just thought that that would be like a cool thing to share with you guys, because, you know, it's like a food for thought. It like really is. What color is this? It really is a food for thought. Like, no one really thinks about like the dynamics that actually go into something like that. Right? And so, you know, you don't have to fight that. Oh, I can't fall in love with that person. Like, where are you going? Love isn't a noun. Like, what do you mean? Like, and like, it's just a state of being. You simply do or you don't. And if you love all. And it's really simply that's really that simple. Like, it's not like we as humans, we put all these conditions on it. Like, oh, this person has to be this way, look this way, make this much money, have this kind of job. There's so many conditions. And then we go, oh, why can't I find love? Man, like, you literally put all these conditions on it. Like, you can't find love because that's not love. Love is unconditional. Like, what? Like, that's why you're not finding it. That's why it's not working for you. So anyway, food for thought. You know? So, like, you know, I would challenge you to kind of like, you know, do some re-examining. Just like re-examine like your life and like what you convinced yourself like love was. And like whether or not it's worked out for you. Right? Because even the ones that are watching this that are partnered, the majority of you, and I'm not saying this because like I'm a psychic, feel that there's that there's a level of deepness that you crave with your partner that you don't have. Not that you don't, not that you're not like fiercely into them. Oh my gosh, like not even like that. Like the reason why I'm saying that is because we all crave like a level of deepness, right? And if you haven't yet realized where it's coming from and how to get there, then you will always crave like that level of deepness. Like that'll always just kind of be your thing. So, you know, so I would actually like challenge you into figuring out like how can you be there all the time? Because if you are harnessing it all the time, if you can recognize that you yourself are love, right? Then you don't have to search for it. You don't have to question whether or not that person's coming when you're going to meet that person, like when it's going to happen for you, if it's ever going to happen for you, because you'll understand that because you are love in and of itself, that it'll always happen for you, because like energy attracts like energy. Energetically, metaphysically wise, it doesn't work that way. To be someone that has always lived in the power of love, to be someone that chooses to harness love every day, right? Like, and then not experience it in the way that you would like to experience it. Like it doesn't work that way. So yeah, now that I've been rambling for like 30 something minutes, I'm gonna leave you guys with that. This was definitely a spiritual chat if I've ever seen one. And like, you know, let me know if something's clicked for you in the comments. As always, guys, make sure you check out the links in the description box below, and I'll see you soon.